Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. And did anyone have the opportunity to read them or have any comments? I'd entertain a motion to approve.
I'll second.
John Reardon made a motion to approve, and Bobby second. All those in favor say aye. Anybody objecting? Blah, blah. Okay, approved. This is the time for public comment on any items on the agenda. If anyone wants to make a statement at this time, if you have something that's on the agenda where you're a proponent, you can hold your comments until later unless you want to make any comment at this time. Thanks. Next, we'll have an update on the Basin Creek Caretaker's House project from Kate.
Okay, well, it's moving right along. We actually have the windows finally. So here's some photos with the windows and the doors in. There's a little bit of, well, he thought he was going to be finished before the winter, but the winter came a little bit early. So he's trying to do like a window a day, and it's not really working. Some of them he has to adjust a little bit. So the trim. So it's taken him a little bit longer, but it's looking great. And he's finished all the concrete work, as you can see on the front step there, and it looks fabulous. So that's finished, and some doors and windows are in, and what's left to do is the completing of the doors and windows, inserting the doors and windows, including rebuilding and adjusting some trim that needs to be, rebuilding the restorable windows, so there's 2 of those, and then the basement concrete work and door insertion for the basement, which you can see, well, I don't have a picture of that, but that will have to be in the spring. So he'll be working through the winter as he can, and then he will be completing the project in the spring. And I'll be working on that National Register nomination throughout the winter, so it's good timing. It'll be finished in time. And he's doing a great job. Good. I'll let him know.
We're very happy. We'll be even happier when BSB makes a decision to have someone actually live in the residence, because that's what it needs for going forward. And someday maybe we can have a discussion about just making some kind of motion or something like that to encourage that as a body, to encourage that, because that's what's required, in my opinion. And we can discuss it. Maybe it could be on the next meeting's agenda.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
The inside is still down to the studs, as you know, so there's going to be a massive cleanup as soon as it's all shored up, and then we'll start working on getting funds together for that interior work. Does anybody have any questions about it? Okay.
Thanks, Kate. That's great. Do you have other topics you want to cover today, Kate?
Yes. So, as promised, I finally heard back from Corey Markovich. At first, I called a few times, and I didn't hear back. But finally, Carolyn and I called him. And
Could you clarify, because I don't think anybody knows about it except for you and I.
This is about the Irish Times building, which recently had an issue with the back wall falling in. There was a storm, or there was a weather event, and the back wall fell in, and it was dangerous, and so they had to wind up demoing the rest of the wall. So Bobby has been asking me for updates on that building for a few months, so I'm happy to deliver. So I just spoke with him, and he says that, so they have Cushing Terrell as they are the architects that are designing the changes in the building. The design is about 85% complete at this point. So he has a schedule all set for the completion of the design. The guy's name is Adam, that's the architect. He's already reached out to our planning department about getting the proper permits in place. So he is planning on reviewing design by the end of January and then submitting to the county by the end of February. So it is moving along. The bricks, Corey has the bricks in a truck in his yard. And he says anywhere that you'd like them, CPR would like them to go, he will deliver them. So he has them all, he's collected them all, the bricks from the back that had fallen down, they're the really soft brick, and so he has them all stored. And he's just awaiting someone to tell him what to do with them. So he said that he spoke with somebody from CPR.
Yes, I spoke with him, and I thought somebody who needed brick was going to be contacting him, so I'll follow through now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, now is the time. So he's totally ready to deliver them wherever. As for that back wall, I guess they were in the process of designing a moment frame for the back wall right before it collapsed. So that's the plan for that. So they have to design the back wall to get that rebuilt, rebuild the roof, get the windows placed back in, restore the historic storefront on the main streets and on the Galena side. And then they're intending on having commercial. Oh, I'm sorry. I think this is probably Leslie? Hello, this is Kate. Hi. Okay, good. Oh, no, that's okay. So you're on, so I'm just giving my updates, and then you just sit tight. We'll get to you in a sec. Can you hear me?
Perfect. I can hear you just fine, thank you.
Okay, perfectly, and we can all hear you. All right. So, so just finishing that up. Commercial office space, a small boutique he was thinking downstairs, a restaurant because it's set up already to be, food service, that kind of thing. He doesn't plan on going into, the bar business himself, he said, but be happy if somebody else would do that. And then commercial office space above. So that's.
Thank you. I mean, I was very concerned about the potential for demolition after this wall. I mean, I was worried about the building before the wall, and it'll be 3 years coming up in February since the fire that damaged it. So I'm thrilled to hear that they're not going to abandon the project, and I hope that they move forward in 2023.
They definitely will, and I think if anything, maybe this has given them incentive to move forward quicker because the architect from Cushing Terrell reached out to our planning department right after that happened. So I think it's looking good.
So I do have a comment about because I did speak with Corey about it, and he was not interested in reusing the brick, which is why CPR has reached out to him. However, I really think since the design is at 85, I think it still is an opportunity for some discussion with him about reusing the brick instead of as a solid brick wall, but as a veneer, exactly as happened to the O'Rourke. And if they can do that, that's the most ideal, because otherwise there's going to be a material on the back that really is not as desirable as the brick. So I hope that's a discussion he's willing to have. And if he wants to talk to somebody at the O'Rourke, I'm sure they would help him with any thoughts that they had on it.
Yeah, actually, he did mention that he would be willing. He was asking, our advice on, do you think that they would like us to come and show the designs? And I was like, well, I know they would. So, so we can definitely, he's willing to do that. Absolutely. Okay. So just a couple other quick things. I've been working with this group about the old Poor Farm Cemetery. A woman named Janice Hand. She is a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution, and she has become very interested in the preservation of this Poor Farm Cemetery that is kind of been forgotten about out there. And so we've had our first meeting and working with, the DAR, the Hibernians, Butte-Silver, and then this Butte Historical Memorial Committee on the preservation of the cemetery. So it's totally in its preliminary stages, but we're figuring out what we can do with that, getting it at least demarcated and getting it surrounded, maybe with a fence and with some signage and get some trail work done. So that's one thing. The Historic Gathering Places Tour. Oh, sorry, John.
Which cemetery is this affiliated with? Is it St. Pat's, Holy Cross, or?
So it's on Butte-Silver property, but the Poor Farm was, I'm sorry, the building that's right in front of the Poor Farm is now,
NCAT?
sorry, yes, the NCAT.
Oh, okay, so it isn't affiliated, it was just basically, they were buried right back out of the hospital there probably
Right,
in
and
earlier days.
So they think there were as many as 500 people out there,
I would believe that, yes.
but they only can find, they're working on finding the names of more people because I think they only have about 100 so far
Interesting.
that they know were buried there doing archival research and stuff like that. So we're trying to get a list together, maybe work with tech to get some ground penetrating radar to sort of, figure out the boundaries, and make sure that there's no burials outside of the boundaries. So get some archaeology involved, and yeah, it's just preliminary stages, but
Okay.
should be an interesting project.
Sounds good. Thank you very much for your info.
Oh, you're welcome. The Historic Gathering Places tour, I just wanted to mention, that was actually a great success. Thank you for anyone who went on it, despite being held the same day as the Cat Grizz game. It was a little worrisome, but we actually had a really good turnout. I don't have the numbers yet because our board meeting is tomorrow morning, but I think it was much better than expected. And I mentioned, so there's this Columbia Gardens roof that is just sitting on private property right now out near the Columbia Gardens Arch, out near the old Beef Trail Road. And the current property owner has no interest in it and would just like for it to go away. So I just wanted to mention that to you. If you had any ideas, I think it's about 20 by 20 hip roof. It's like the red cedar that most of the Columbia Garden roofs were of that similar material, I guess. So I was thinking, I didn't know if we should call, the World Museum of Mining or something like that, but if anybody has any suggestions of something to do with that. The previous owners of the property, or potential owners, wanted to build something for that roof specifically, but I guess their funding fell through, so the current owners have no interest in it, and it could be destroyed, it could go away, it could, for all they care. So I just want to let you know, maybe if anybody has any suggestions, could be thinking about it. Another thing is 51 Missoula Street is a Butte-Silver owned property. It's a potential demo, so I'm putting that out there because we might want to get ahead of the Land Sales Committee. We haven't made our suggestions to the Land Sales Committee to demo the property yet, but it's in terrible shape. I've seen it. So if you'd like to take a field trip out there, we can organize that. And at the end of the meeting, I would like to also talk about maybe changing the meeting date for January. So I'll bring that back up at the end. So that's it for me.
Great, thank you, Kate. The next item on the agenda is Julia Crane, who's going to talk about the reclamation, specifically the Butte Mine Yards Heritage Planning Project grant through DNRC. Thanks, Julia.
I can stay here. I can do this. This is fine. I don't want to move you from your seat. Thank you, Chair Resilien. Thank you to the board. I'm Julia Crane. I'm the Assistant Director of the Department of Reclamation. I'm here tonight to talk with you about a project that Butte-Silver submitted to the Department of Natural Resources and Conservation in 2020 for the 2020 legislative session. In this particular project, Butte-Silver Department of Reclamation and the Historic Preservation Office submitted a grant to do mine yard rehab and rehabilitation and restoration at the Stewart Mine and the Anselmo Mine. We received a grant for $225,000 to perform this work, and I will be walking you through some of the elements of the scope of work this evening so that you are aware of the work that will be happening in the mine yards and share with you the plan of action. As you all know, we just are coming out of a very unique time globally, and in 2019, when we submitted this particular application, the the costs were very different than they are today, particularly the inflationary effects on durable goods and consumables. But we are in the process of working on the contract for this particular grant with the state of Montana. That involves an environmental checklist, which we are preparing in our office, and working with the contractors who first prepared the bids and quotes for this particular project to get updated costs, so we can contract the project and make sure that we have enough resources to perform those that are the most important. And we'll talk first about the Stewart Mine Yard. Kate here has a photo of the Stewart Mine Yard and indicates some of the various elements within the mine yard. You see the head frame, of course. Just north of there is the main hoist house, and then to the west is the timber delivery tunnel portal. And these are the two elements at this particular mine yard that will be the focus of these grant funds. You can go to the next slide. Thanks, Kate. So here you have the main hoist house at the Stewart Mine, and this particular element is an element of building conservation. So we received funds to re-roof the main hoist house and the porch on the west side of the building, as well as this timekeeper's office that is there, sort of the appurtenance that is on the west end there. That is currently roofed with rolled roofing, and there is leaking that has been identified inside the hoist house. And so the roofing project would re-roof that and essentially limit the current situation of water infiltrating into the building envelope. In addition to the main hoist roof, on the primary, the west porch, and the office addition, the siding on this particular building, you could see that on the appurtenant timekeeper's office and also on the dormer where the hoist facility or the hoist cable left the building, is asbestos in nature. In 2017, the reclamation of the Lexington mine yard utilized a technology called transite barrier compound to encapsulate that asbestos siding so that we didn't have to lose the historic integrity of the traditional historic asbestos siding, and it will be painted on so that it encapsulates the asbestos so that you don't have asbestos contamination as an outset of that or as a result of that. Moving on, these are just another couple views of the hoist house. Here is, I don't know if many of you know this, but underneath Main Street at the Stewart Mine Yard, there is a tunnel. The previous historic preservation officer and I went on a very fun investigation of what this tunnel could have been. And our best hypothesis is that this tunnel has a relationship with the BAMP that is across the street and just near Agate, Ruby, and Boardman Street. And we believe that this was where timbers were loaded onto the BAMP rail tracks and were taken off on a spur and into the Stewart Mine Yard. And so we're calling this the timber delivery tunnel. This particular tunnel extends the full length under Montana Street and probably historically opened up back out onto where the trail is today, but currently dead ends. There has been a significant collapse in the west end of this tunnel. The proposal that we submitted to the DNRC proposes to further collapse safely the existing collapse of the tunnel, backfill and compact that, build a bulkhead so that we completely shut off access through there, and then perform structural stabilization of the tunnel itself, rewiring the tunnel so that there would be lighting within the tunnel, and rehabilitating this adit here so that there would be access to the tunnel for historic interpretation. And then the third element at the Stewart Mine Yard is very substantial subsidence of what are historically called utility chases. There were wood boxes that were built between buildings in the mine yards that carried the infrastructure such as electricity, compressed air, water, all of the different utilities that you would need. And due to the deterioration of those facilities over time, mainly the deterioration due to water, we have significant subsidence that makes it extremely unsafe for people to be in the mine yard, not only the people that are working in there every day currently, but our team when we go in to perform remedial action. And so we will be collapsing these utility chases and backfilling those so that they are structurally sound for, or safe for people to move about within the mine yard itself. Moving west, we are at the Anselmo Mine Yard here. In previous years, under similar grants, such as this Mine Yards Phase 5 is essentially what we're calling this, there have also been additional resources that were granted through SARDA or through legislative appropriation to perform additional rehabilitation work at the Anselmo. And most recently, doors and windows on the garage facilities on the east side of the mine yard, and then also the windows on the main hoist were rehabilitated, and then we created rock screens that were placed over those windows to prevent rocks from being thrown and breaking the windows that had been rehabbed. That was a very successful endeavor, and we leveraged the work that was done during that project to do additional building rehab at the Anselmo facility, specifically to the carpentry shop. The floor, oh, we don't need to go there yet. We can do this one really quick. As well as, yeah, okay, we'll do the carpentry shop. No, it's okay, go back to the carpentry shop. Yeah, right here. So in the previous project, the wood plank flooring was repaired in this particular facility, and viewing areas were created at both the west and east ends of the carpentry shop. Essentially what happened is wood would be put on a conveyor belt and moved through various levels of, I guess, joinery in the carpentry facility. And it's really cool inside. And so the initial investment in this particular structure was to make it accessible for the public to look and see that activity. The trouble being there's no light in there because all of the windows are boarded up. So this particular element of the project would reconstruct or replicate historic windows on both the north and south sides of the building and reconstruct the very large scale 10-foot by 10-foot sliding doors that are on casters to allow those to move a little more smoothly than what they do now and allow the public to go in and to do interpretation in the carpentry shop itself. This particular building will also have, and the windows will also include rock screens to prevent those from being damaged in the future. And then again, like the Steward, over time, this particular facility has really struggled with stormwater deterioration entering into those utility chases, causing them to degrade further and then collapse when people walk or drive over them. We've measured, the Anselmo has approximately 75 feet of chase that is currently collapsing, so we will perform the work to collapse those utility chases and backfill them. And then there is one particular element that's really cool under an air tank in, I guess it would be southeast of the dry, where you can see this very large 5 foot by 5 foot box. And the access box had sort of the main the utility knobs. I don't know. Anyway, we're going to reconstruct that and try to take what we can that can be used and reuse what we can, reuse the hinges and other relevant items if possible, so that we can maintain that for historic interpretation as well. There was a third element of this project that integrated some land use controls to allow for pedestrians to move through. So we wanted to do some asphalt paving, et cetera, and that particular element was not funded by the DNRC. So really focusing here on reclamation of the unstable ground surfaces and rehabilitation of the buildings. We'll never be short on projects when it comes to the mine yards. So with that, I would happily take questions.
Thanks for the great job you're doing and all that. In going with the Stewart mine, I was wondering, the way I understand it is the hoist motor, and that is one of the only working mechanisms left on the Butte Hill. Is that correct?
Commissioner Reardon, to my knowledge, that is correct.
All right.
And the location and the presence of the rehabilitated hoist is the reason we went for the rehab money
Right.
for this particular structure. Mainly getting rid of all of that subsidence, which is like underneath staircases and very
Right.
close to pedestrian trails, will make it easier for the public to be able to view and participate in interpretation at the Stewart.
Great, great, thank you. Great job.
I guess if there's no other comments, thank you, Julia. Did you have something you wanted to say, John? Okay, now we're going to move to the new business portion of the agenda, and that's what our person that's on the phone has been waiting for. It is the old YMCA, and this is a design review COA for windows and doors, actually.
Yeah, so we have Leslie Gilmore on the phone. She's waiting to speak to us about this project. This is a beautiful building that's in fantastic shape. The old YMCA, it was built in 1918. There are 36 masonry openings, 105 sashes, and 2 wooden doors with glazing. So, I mean, this is quite a sizable project. And I would definitely recommend that, knowing that Leslie knows very well what she's doing, that we approve the project and move forward with it. I mean, whether we go with replacing with the Anderson Series 100s or with the actual window restoration. So with that, I would turn it over to Leslie Gilmore, who is on the phone.
Hi, thanks, Kate, and all of you. I think you might know that I've been pushing to get these windows restored, so there's always a resistance to that, but we'll see how the pricing goes, because the contractor has presented that the scale of the project would that McCormick had recommended in the past. But also, there's the fact that the owner does not really want to deal with the exterior maintenance of painted wood windows. So they're currently getting pricing from Renewal by Anderson for that Fibrex window that you all have approved in the past. So there's a precedent that's been set there. And they're hoping that that cost will be less than restoration. I don't know that it will be, because window costs are rising these days. And I do understand that indeed, if we do remove the windows and provide new ones, that apparently CPR would be a willing recipient of the original windows. And this, as Kate said, is really just only of 105 sashes and 2 doors, whereas we have some 363 sashes in the building total. So there will be more later down the road as the project moves forward. I think I expressed in the application that it's a long-term phased project that could be 4 or 5 years, and probably working from the grade up. And they're very excited about working with the pool and the gymnasium and all that stuff. So, but they need to get through the exterior envelope first. That's probably enough to say, and I'm certainly here for questions because I'm sure you have them.
Thanks, Leslie. I do have a question. I think it was in your proposal that you were also looking at what Marvin Windows has to offer for probably a metal-clad wood. Am I just making that up, or was that part of your proposal?
You're not making it up. I don't think I said it in the proposal. I might have in the SARTA grant, because we have received $25,000 from SARTA for it. And we've been looking, the owner is working on 3 different buildings in downtown Butte, and all of them have window issues. So they started with looking at Renewal by Anderson, and they're going to be looking at, I think, Marvin and pergola, metal-clad windows. My understanding is that metal-clad windows are acceptable to you, to your group?
They are. We have accepted them in
Okay.
the past.
Okay.
So I think the only other question that I have from the COA is that it did not state explicitly the operation of the windows. So I could not tell. It looks like there are some casement in there. I just wanted to make sure that the proposal was to replace double hung with single hung or casement with casement. And also, just had a question about the grills as well.
Okay. So, yes, and in fact, in preparing for this, I re-looked through a sort of rough schedule I had done of the windows, and they're all over the place. On the ones that we're working on for this phase, they're either double hung and some are fixed. But when we get to, it's mostly the gymnasium on the third and fourth floors that has a lot of casement windows. And I think they probably thought they could get even, greater percentage of ventilation with a casement window than they could from a double hung. So I'm assuming that's why they have casement windows there. But to answer your question, yes, whatever the operation currently is, they will match. And I probably didn't say that in there, so I need to I don't know if you want me to add an addenda or addendum to make that clear.
Either an addendum or Kate can just put it in the COA right now, and we will just assume that that'll be in the COA, and that's what we'll vote on with the operation to be
Okay.
maintained. But could you talk about the grills? I just want to make sure that the sash pattern is also the same, and that was not mentioned in the application.
Oh, wow. No, I apologize. Yes, it will be matched. Yes, the Munson pattern, definitely. Yes, I apologize.
So
But-
Tracy,
and it is really that I was just remiss. They are planning to, and that they. So I'll make sure that that was a concern of yours and that it's being added. But that's been the intent the whole time. So I will. Hopefully, if Kate can add that along with her note about the operating style or function, however you want to phrase that, the operation. Yeah.
Right, so operational windows to be maintained and the Muntins will be replicated as they are.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah, and I don't know. While we're talking about Muntins, if they're, I don't know if they're true divided light or if the Muntins are between the panes of glass. But if there's a mandate from the Historic Preservation Commission, I will be happy to relay that to the owner and the design team.
I didn't get that. Could you repeat that again, Leslie? I'm just didn't understand that.
Oh, sure. Even Marvin and Pella and Anderson all have options where the Muntins can be, they on both sides of the window, so that it's a true divided light. So this is a true divided light where you'd have like 9 individual panes of glass in a sash divided into 9 with that grid, with that Muntin grid. So there's true divided light, and then there's also having snap-on Muntins where you have the Muntin pattern snapped in from the inside and the outside onto the inside and outside of the glass. And then there's also one where the Muntin grill is between the pieces of insulated glass. The most common one these days seems to be where the Muntin pattern is snapped onto the outside and the inside so that one can remove that and then have greater ease of cleaning the windows and also greater ease in terms of window replacement. But if there's a mandate or preference from the Historic Preservation Commission, I will make sure to relay that to the ownership team. And I can send information about what those details look like, if that's needed.
I guess maybe we have to have some discussion here because it hasn't been something that has come up before. I will just say that this is a very important building. It is on a main street, and to have the first option that you identified, which is essentially to have muttons that are real, as opposed to not, is certainly my preference. But I think we need to, the other people on this Historic Preservation Commission have opinions, and I will readily acknowledge that that is a significant cost increase from the other options that you identified. So maybe someone else would like to make a comment.
Would there be places to prioritize that kind and other less visible areas where, for cost reasons, knowing that this is just such a gigantic project? I mean, maybe along Park and not along Washington, or do you think that's something we should entertain?
Jennifer just whispered. Or on the first floor and not on the upper floors. Are there any other comments regarding the sort of things that we might consider? Because whatever decision we make, that will stand unless they want to come back and say it's going to be cost prohibitive, or we want to redo or something like that. So I think we need to think carefully about what we want to do. And so I hope others have some comments as well.
If I could, thank you, Mitzi, Chairman. Clarification, what we're talking about is on the bottom floor there, on the windows there that we saw, that she talked about the 9 windows. So she's talking about actually putting 9 individual small windows there rather than having the one big window with just the artificial divides on it. I mean, the windows themselves will be 9 individual windows.
That they have 9 individual panes in one window.
Right.
So
That's
yes,
what
that's
we're talking about.
What we're talking about.
Okay. And I do have to coincide with Bobby and them. On the first floor, I can see where that would be. You're just right there as you're looking at it. I can understand, that, but up on the 9th floor, or the 9th floor, but the 6th floor,
Skyscraper.
it's upside down. So, but anyway, that was my, I'm just looking at that, if it's that relevant, up on the upper floors. Like I said, I understand, and I could see that on the bottom floors and that, but up on the top floors, nobody's going to be up there, looking at them. If they are up there, they shouldn't be on the side of the building. Yeah, that's a very good point, yeah, that separation there, yeah.
She identified that, whatever that, I'll call it a water board, but it's not a water board. Could you show us the front again?
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
So essentially, it is 2 floors of windows.
Right.
Below that, we'll just call it a divider or something like that. Leslie knows what it's called, we
Is
don't.
it a cornice? Lower cornice?
So, does anybody have, Jennifer, why don't you go ahead and actually turn your mic on and talk to us?
Up above, there's not as many muttons needed either, so that helps them, that saves them a lot of money too. They don't have to worry about it up there. I know it's gonna cost more down below, but if everybody's gonna see it, I think it needs to be done the right way.
Tracy,
Am I
you have a
making
comment?
sense?
More like a question. For past practice, historical, looking back, has it been approved to allow, I guess we'd call it simulated windows, or have you guys always required it to be actual
panes on these.
As I recall, we have never required that it have full replication of the construction style, I'll just say that, for windows. Now, some people have chosen to do that because, but I can think of many cases when they didn't. The wheel alignment place on Galena, for example, which is one that truthfully grates on my nerves a little bit when I look at it, because it doesn't have that depth that you really associate it with it. But there are many like that we have, and I cannot remember a single one, but there could have been some in the past, so.
I would hate for this to be, a deal breaker. I wonder, is it really cost prohibitive? I mean, should we entertain potentially just the first floor where people are walking right by it? Will they be able to notice it that much? I guess if they're up in the second floor, they would know. But if there were the dividers both on the inside and the outside, even if they weren't separate panes of glass. I'm so excited that they're restoring this building that I don't want to have such a onerous requirement that it would discourage them to move forward. Maybe that's out of the question, but I wanted to throw it out there.
So, Leslie, could you give us some idea about what their schedule for window replacement is? I think at this point, if we made a motion, it would be to have you return with some more information regarding that. So can you tell me what their
Yes,
schedule is?
The schedule, as far as I do know it somewhere. We'd be looking to order windows in January or February, and it's going to take months for them to come. So I think I could easily come back to the January meeting before an order is made, so that I can provide more information and hopefully have gotten a response from them with cost variations, because they can get the cost for true divided light compared to the simulated divided lights, and then be able to understand what that means to them. And so certainly, and we could also be looking, that will have given us time to look at the other manufacturers. So in terms of the schedule, I'm trying to remember, I don't have it in front of me, but I think it was January or February, and then to order the windows, and then it would be, installation was going to be, I don't know, thinking sometime in June or August, depending on when the windows actually came. So why don't I just come back in January with some more information? So I realized I threw kind of a curveball at you, asking you it's a question that really needs to be addressed seriously, like you are looking at it.
John Reardon?
Thank you. In listening to the comments made and looking at this building, and I haven't been on this committee very long, as you well know, and all that stuff, but we don't have any certain, as was admitted by a couple buildings, of glass going back into these older buildings. Yeah, everybody'd like to be driving the Cadillac, and that would be, basically going up and down with all the brand new spiffy things. I think that everybody in this room is on the same page about looks and about, there again, not pricing these people out of the project. I think it's a 5-year project. It's going to cost a lot of money. I know windows are a big part of any building, but I think we should reconsider basically maybe even the bottom row or anything, because once you get off the ground and look in those windows and all that, or even if not, we got to come up with a policy that we're going to follow, that basically we can't go from building to building saying, hey, this is what we gotta do, or I would like to see. And I think that's something that we should take into consideration, considering the amount of money that is going to be put into these buildings. I mean, I think with their proposal is they're not trying to nickel and dime anything as far as windows. I think that it sounds like these people that are redoing this building really have their act together and basically wouldn't be put a cheap window or a discolored window with the trim in this building. So I think if you guys want to, I mean, I'm just one member. I mean, you know, let's hear what they have to say and the difference and all that. But we're kind of under the gun here from the sounds of it to me, because they're planning on ordering these windows in January and February. So basically, we have to have something in writing, or basically a review about our rules and modifications to these buildings. Thank you.
Tracy?
Thank you. 100%, I support that as well. I don't want to come across that we're discouraging any type of historic preservation, and I think that their intentions are very clear to preserve our history, and I think that if we made a request and said this is ideal, but to enforce it when we never have in the past and don't have, as John mentioned, a firm policy on what expectations are, I feel like it would be unfair to pick out like this one's extra special. We can't say that, you know, it is, but there's no policy that allows us to really discriminate against one building or the other. So I think being as fair and consistent as we can is probably, you know, to encourage people to continue to come and try to renovate our town. So thank you.
Go ahead, Bobby.
I just want, it sounds like they're willing to come and explore with us in January their various options, and they would have a recommendation of what their preferred route might be. We could, if that would work, that would be great, and then we would all have more information to make a decision, and it would help us for future projects too, to find out just how much this cost difference might be.
That's great.
And let me see.
Go ahead, John.
Just really quick too, and just looking at this with John and everybody has said here too. If we look at our building codes and everything, if we were to start rebuilding all of our buildings in Uptown Butte, according to 1890, we wouldn't allow them to build them like that. Just like with the way the joists are just in with the the bricks and stuff, rather than being reinforced and stuff. There's no way that the modern building code would allow us to build a building like that. I recently in the miners building down there on Park Street there, and we're down in the basement looking at that, where that whole foundation on that building is granite. And I know for a fact there's no way that we would allow a 6-story building be built with the granite foundation in this day and age. So my point being is that I don't know, going strictly right to where the historical part was, like it says, the bottom floor I think would be really genuine where it's there, but once you get to the point up on top there, like it says, I'm getting kind of lost here, but our building codes would not allow us to build a new building with 1890 codes. And so I think that's something we should have to look at also too, when we're renovating these buildings, especially with the heating that's going to be going on with this building. And that's why we need the thermal glass in there, because of the cost of the energy and stuff. And so we've got so much more better materials and everything in this day and age to utilize that, and it will not ruin the core of the building. And I think, you know, we should be a little bit more laxed on that part, you know, demanding that, you know, when and where it can be done, you know, a little bit of I say creating a gray area, but, you know, a place for options, you know, especially on a large-scale building like this. Thank you.
Thanks, John. I'll just add one comment that all of those windows that they propose, the 3 options, all of them are energy efficient. That is that's as a given. So I know that that was not the real gist of your comment, but I just wanted to clarify that. So I think what we need is a motion that either says we approve what they have suggested, which I'm not sure what they have suggested, or we make a motion to delay a vote on this until we can have further information at the January meeting. So someone please make a motion on however they feel. Go ahead, John.
Okay, I'd like to make this motion. I think that, we had a great discussion. I believe the person on the phone is agreeable in doing it right or giving us other options, so I would be open to her being present or on phone again so we can get this handled, with the idea that we have to give her a final answer at that next meeting. And if we're going to do this and make changes, then I think that we really have to look at what we're doing as far as future buildings down the road. That's my motion. Thank you.
Okay, so to clarify, John's motion is to delay a vote on this until next January, and with the understanding that we will make an affirmative vote, or a vote of one way or the other at the next meeting with additional information that Leslie provides. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there anything on the question? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. It passes. I appreciate the time we spent on this. I think it's important. And Leslie, I think you get the gist of what we're asking for if you're still on the phone.
Yes, I am, and I do. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie.
You're welcome.
Okay, now we're going to run through the rest of them. Unfortunately, I don't know if we can.
Okay, should we hang up?
So, yeah.
Are we good? Okay, Leslie, thank you so much for calling in. I told you that there was going to be the question about the window configuration, but this definitely went beyond that. So we will be in touch.
Very good. Thank you, Kate. Appreciate it,
thank
everyone.
you.
Have a good night.
You too.
Okay.
All right.
Good night.
Good night.
The next item on the agenda is a design review COA for 65 West Broadway, which is the Kenwood building, and this is a sign repair. And I see that Keegan is here if you want to make a short presentation, but Kate might want to introduce it first.
I just had one thing to say in between. Mr. Riggs is not here, and he's not going to be able to make it. And I would rather that he be here to discuss his elevator, so I think we should put that off until next month as well. I know you have
If
all the
that is-
information.
Have you had a chance to talk with him about it? And
Yes.
that he's acceptable to that? That's
Yeah.
acceptable to him?
He was
Great.
stuck in an accident or something in Three Forks, and
Okay.
I said you should just turn around.
Thank
Because
you.
I don't think that it would be good for him to describe the design of his elevator over the phone from his car, which he was willing to do. But so if that's okay with everyone, we will do the Galena Street Demolay building next month. Okay. So next we have the Kenwood building. You're all familiar with it, 65 West Broadway Street. And this is another sign repair. So Keegan is here, and also we have John Weitzel here and who is working on the sign. So I figure that between the two of them, they can discuss what they plan to do.
Okay. You want to go first?
So yeah, the original, or the sign that was on there, it's green and it says Kenwood and like neon on both sides. It's pretty cool. And they took it down for filming the 1923 show. So it was the Bozeman Hotel for a little bit. So we want to make it the Kenwood again. But the neon isn't working right now. So we had some LED strips in there to kind of light it up temporarily. But we'd like to restore the neon so that it lights up again. So the goal is that it'll go back up and look just like that, but it will light up. So that's all I really know. So.
Okay. And just really quick here too, and I did go up and I looked at the sign of that. Jared Parnell from All-in-One Trade did remove the sign for that, and he will also be reinstalling it when it's done. What they did was they took the LED lighting and they wrapped it around some of the neon. They gutted out the transformers and everything from the inside of it there, and they removed an awful lot of the housings where the neon goes through the sheet metal. And so what we will probably end up doing is removing all of the neon off of there, testing the stuff the ones that are still good, and reuse them and that, and then make new neon, and then it'll also have all brand new transformers, brand new wiring, housing, and the paint will be stripped off of there, and it'll be, repainted and all hand lettered, and so it'll go up and it'll look brand new and look real classy again. I can guarantee it.
All right.
Thanks, John. Does anybody have any comments? Jennifer has a question.
What is the original date of that building, or the sign?
That I don't know. I got to do a little research on it. I was looking at it. It's fairly old, but it was redone back in the 80s or 90s, if I'm not mistaken. It's been up for quite a while. I right offhand I don't know, but I think even like the mid 80s I think is when it would have been redone. And it was actually done off of the original sign itself, the original design.
Yeah, I don't know the date of the exact sign. There's like an old photo from probably 1920 or so that it doesn't have it up yet, so sometime after that, but I haven't done enough photo stalking to figure it out yet. Yeah.
Are there any other comments? I just have one comment. This sign is part of a thing that's going on in our community that's so exciting, because slowly but surely neon is coming back to our town, and it is thrilling. It is really thrilling. One of my favorite neon things is in Chinook, where there's a woman in a martini glass, and that no longer is being lit. And so we're going to overtake the state of Montana for great neon with projects like this. Someone want to make a motion regarding this particular COA?
I'll make a motion to approve as is on the COA. Did I do that right?
I'll second.
It's been moved and second to approve the COA as it was presented. All those in favor say aye, except for John, who has recused himself. Aye. Anyone say nay? Great. And just to clarify, it was John Weitzel that recused himself, not John Reardon, for the minutes. Thank you very much. It's a great project, Keegan.
I'm excited to see it lit up and to get everything else done.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the design COA for 659, 661 South Main Street. Kate, do you want to do an introduction?
Thank you, yeah. I've been terrible sorry, I've been forgetting that I even have a PowerPoint up there all evening. So these two buildings are being restored by the owner information. This is Crossbow Holdings LLC. It's BMY Construction. This is pretty much a complete restoration inside and out. So, the two buildings from the front, the porches are being rebuilt. The railings are being rebuilt for the porches. They're being painted. It's getting a new roof. New shingles in the front? You've got a new roof, okay. Well, they were very thorough in their designs, so hopefully you had a chance to look at your packets with all of the detailed drawings. So these are the two fronts. They're essentially, would you call them sisters? They're exactly the same. And so they're also going to be building new front stoops to the street, so to the sidewalk, which it does not have right now. And we went to visit it, and it was kind of a high step. And so I think we're keeping the same, are we keeping the same porch posts, the turned posts? Yeah, we're just building the railings back. Replacement of all doors, replacement of all windows. So I haven't mentioned this the whole time, but so here's the location of these two buildings within Butte as a whole, the overview, and then the footprint of both buildings together. We're considering them two as one, which we've done before. So 659 and 661 South Main. So these are, they're a brick veneer, and on the one side, the whole wall had to come down. And we have Brian Blankenship here. He's the construction manager for BMY, so he can probably talk about this better than I can. But so the brick veneer is being replaced on, which one is that? Is that 661? That's going to go up as siding. Okay. Here, this one is being fixed. Okay. So I think that maybe you should talk about it a little bit. Sorry, thanks. It's just a complete project. I was like, I think somebody needs to come to speak about it, because if you guys have questions, then I can't, and I can't answer them. So this is for the better. Yeah, there's a little.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, I'm Ryan Blankenship. I'm with BMY Construction, representing the owners here. So I'll tell you guys a little bit about what you're seeing here in this picture. These two buildings had some porch additions to the back of them that were significantly failing. So, and proximity to the neighbor's house, right there, you can see it's about 3 feet away. It was a danger. First thing we did was come in and get rid of those and make the site safe. With that, as we removed those, this building here, where you can see the wood siding or the wood planking on the back, a lot of that veneer came down with it. We had to finish demoing that as quickly as possible. There was bricks hanging, and we had to get that off. The intent here is to go back with siding. I don't know what pictures you have here, but yeah, so this building here, the veneer stayed in good shape all the way around. We're going to rebuild around the windows, repoint, fix, probably paint the back of this, since a lot of it is painted already. If we try to get into pressure washing and taking stuff off, we kind of don't know what we'll find with that soft kiln brick. So the idea is just to get it repainted.
I know I have
Okay.
one of the actual. Maybe I don't. Okay.
Okay.
What else would you like to see? Okay. So here's the front again.
Okay.
And they will be painting the brick a brick-like color.
Yes, it is multicolored currently.
Currently, it's several different colors. So here are the porch rebuilds with the railings.
Yep, those will have stairs down to the street level from each point, yep.
Okay. And then they have the doors and windows specified that they will be using. Sorry, I know it's kind of hard to see, but should be in your packets. And then this is the actual porch railing design?
Yep.
Okay. And the posts, or the turned posts, are not going to be removed.
So this is getting into our structural upgrades. It's a balloon frame building. A lot of it was failing. The north building more so. There's a lot of new foundation work that has to happen. Same thing as a rubble foundation there. Back corner of the building had significant damage, falling apart almost completely. So that is going to be removed. Our structural engineers designed a new CMU wall to go across the back that will rebuild in there and make that solid. We'll also kind of put in an area for access to the basement, or essentially crawl space, a very short basement back in the back. Throughout here, the roof was very underframed. Connections to the walls, center line, center bearing line, all that needs to be upgraded. Various details around the entire structure on both.
Oh, and these are the steps.
There's your CMU wall, new connections. Those are just a breakdown of the stairs going in the front. Concrete will be poured up to the sidewalk, the current sidewalk, to give us a good landing.
So this side is already done.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine.
Okay. Well, that's what I have. You have a lot more information in your
Yeah, there's a lot.
packets.
That's kind of a general overview of what has to happen. So right now, it's down to studs. First thing is to go through, get all our structural upgrades done. That's gonna take a little bit of exploring also, make sure that we make these things stand another 100 years at least. Kind of a cool thing here, those shingles you can't really see, but right there under the gables, those shingles are gonna go back with copper. Yeah. Copper shingles. Yeah, other than that, just make the whole front look good, new windows, make everything nice and tight and energy efficient. Pressure wash, seal the decks. Yep.
You plan on following the same window configurations of the original?
As far as, I mean, there's no real window, you mean placement or the way that they're set up?
Like the way that they're set up,
Like where you,
the way that you see the different panes and the with the muntins.
well,
and
there is
separations.
no consistency through
Oh,
any of those.
okay.
Those are all different all the way throughout. Some were single hung, most were single hung. Some of them had some design to it, but they were kind of mixed match, put in there throughout the years. So the idea would be big picture frame window fixed in the front there, single hung around. And then that's pretty much going with the configuration that was already there.
Okay, does somebody have some comments? John?
Turn this on. Hey, I was raised a couple houses up from that, so I'll come down one of these days and give you some history.
Okay, cool.
But the drawings that you have up front and all that are pretty much the same way it was years ago and all that. And my district as commissioners and all that, that's what we're trying to see is the development and the return of the blue class collar worker look on Main Street. And with the work that you're doing there, with the woodwork, with your upper turned, whatever they're called and all that, and your window placement and all that, was exactly how it was in the 19...
Oh, great.
Yeah. So, I mean, that, in those two houses right there, there was probably, those unit was there was probably at that time about 25 kids living there. Johnny can verify that. But, you know, this is part of Butte that needs development, and the things that you guys are doing are, I see the work you're doing is very, very conscious. I like what you're doing with those old foundations and that.
Yes.
I like the way that basically you're doing the frontal, because Main Street is one of the entrances to Uptown Butte that, you know, we're trying to redevelop. And the alley part of it and all that, I understand what you're doing with those bricks and all that to replace the bricks and everything like that is much more costly than it would be, and basically you end up with the same scenario 100 years from now and all that. So,
Right, exactly.
So I really applaud your effort to make this right and all that, and I think you're doing a hell of a job.
All right,
Thank
thank you.
you.
Appreciate that.
Are there other comments? Because I do have a few, but Bobby, it looks like you have a comment.
I was just looking, the railings, are they going to be wood?
Wood, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And probably, they look a little heavy compared to the
Oh, that's
posts.
just, they're just marking where it's gonna go. As far as, that's not the exact look of what it is. If you look at the detail, it's a little bit different. That's more just like, here's the railings. That's
Yeah,
where
because
they're
those
gonna be.
posts are so graceful.
Right,
And
yeah.
the railings will kind of be smaller and match
Yes,
the look of the
yes.
posts.
Yeah, and it's gonna give you a little bit tricky. Those railings are, if you look at the way, it's gonna be kind of tricky making them connect, like you said, gracefully there, just where that's gonna land with the shape of those. But we'll make it look good.
Yeah, I remember when this changed hands right around in the early 2000s. And I was all excited, and then it just sat there for another 20 years, so I'm excited to
Well, we're
see this
doing it.
project
We're
going.
getting it done.
So, Ryan, there are a few concerns I have.
Okay.
And that is, some of the things you said were not in the plans that were forwarded to us. So, for example, it said in the gable ends that they were going to be painted brick red. It
Okay.
didn't say anything about copper.
So the copper is a new idea coming from the owners.
Okay. There's nothing in the plans say anything about
Okay.
the siding or what the siding was going to be on the back, and so
Okay.
we don't know that either. I mean, there are details like that. I think we need some clarification.
Okay, we could do that.
So what is the siding going to be on the rear?
Well, speaking with Kate, it's going to be LP siding smooth is what we're looking at. Same that we've seen around town is the idea. And then, yeah, I mean, we would like to have some direction from you guys as to what would be acceptable. Nothing is picked out for that right away.
So we have approved 6-inch exposure in the past, nothing wider than 6-inch exposure.
Okay.
We haven't been encouraging people to use 4 because it looks more historically appropriate.
Okay.
And some people have used 4-inch exposure. But the smooth is what's important, so
Right.
that's great. I am a little concerned about the copper shingles on the front because there's great detailing on those shingles that are in front. There are 2 different kinds. There's diamond, and then I think there's a fish scale or something like that. It is a painting issue. I understand that. Having painted a house probably 25, almost 30 years ago that has fish scales with proper care, it lasted 30 years and there's no sign of fatigue on there. So I am a little concerned about that, but maybe we can discuss that.
Yeah,
I don't want to piecemeal this piece to piece, but something like that is of concern to me.
And I haven't got up there to look at the condition of that closely either. I'm not sure how deteriorated what is there is at this point, and if it needs to be replaced or if it could be refurbished. I'm not sure yet. I would need to, once I get a lift out there, I can get up and take a look, and we'll have a little bit better idea of what can be done or what needs to be done.
Okay, thank you. And I would encourage you to talk to Butte Historic Trust, who has a big gable end project, all shingles that they just painted this last year or last fall, and the shingles were in kind of poor condition, but anyway, it would be a good place to start a conversation, I think, about that.
Okay.
So there was one other, there were several things that I had concerns about, but I think the most of all was the grading treads on the front.
Okay.
We have studiously not allowed Trex because we think it doesn't look right. It also is a product that is not compatible with historic. And we've never had anybody come with metal grading, but I'll say this, we've never had anybody come with great metal grading for us before. And so I'd like to know if there is some, if that is something that could be reconsidered, and
Sure.
it's something surely that we can talk about here as well.
Okay. Yeah, I'll talk to with the owners. All this information I'll have to pass on to them, and we'll discuss it for sure.
I only have one other question. It doesn't have much to do with any of this, but there's a D5 door on your plans, and it's a sliding, narrow, and I couldn't see where it was going to actually be placed.
Off the top of my head, if I remember right, that's the laundry door.
Okay,
I
all right,
believe.
thank you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of information in those plans.
Right.
It took me a long
Yeah, I
time
mean,
to go through those.
I'm 90% sure that's a laundry door.
So I'm not going to make a motion, but I guess what I would, if I were to suggest a motion be made, that I would like to segregate a few of those things that were, that I think are important. which is the grading treads, and not put that as part of this and have that as a comeback later.
Okay.
And the painting the gable ends. The other, it's part of the record now that you're going to go with siding with LP smooth, but you could come back with either 4 or 6. You could have that information. And the reason why that's important to us, Ryan, is because if you do something different and it goes to the URA, we want to be in a position to know exactly what we said we were going to approve.
Okay.
And so, and there is one more thing. I'm sorry, I thought I was done. But that is the picture windows in front. Picture windows are not what was there historically. I know they were used on the O'Rourke. I didn't like it then, and I don't like it now here. What, if you look at the historic photographs and just what is in the neighborhood, there, what is a cottage window is called a cottage window that has a fixed transom that is about a fifth or something of the size of the full window, and it breaks it up. It would make it look like it was in fact, it doesn't interfere with the view from the inside of the building, and it would really make it look like a historic window in that case. And
Okay.
so, once again, that is something that I hope we could segregate and get some more information about later, but it's really up to the person whoever makes a motion regarding that. I'm just telling you what I would like. I'd like to hear a motion, and you can make a motion any way you want, to be perfectly clear. To approve it as it is, or to approve it with requests for additional information on specific items, or
Are you amenable to coming back with further, give and take on these items that Mitzi has?
Sure, yeah, the pressing things right now that we'd like to get going on is the structural. That's the big, the main thing there. Windows, again, that one we would like to order sooner than later, just to get everything buttoned up. But I'm absolutely willing to come back, yeah.
Okay, well, I'll attempt a motion, and we'll see how it goes. I would move that we approve the certificate of appropriateness with 3 exceptions to be discussed a little bit more down the line. And the exceptions would be the grading treads and the painting of the gable ends and the picture windows, to maybe consider a cottage window with an upper transom. And I would want to specify the type of siding that would be used as flat, as we have discussed previously in this meeting.
is there a second? Tracy, second. Is there anything on the question? All those in favor of the motion as stated by Bobby, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Thank you very much, Ryan.
Okay, thank you very much.
And I'd like to make one comment. This proposal is the sort of thing I like to see here. It is comprehensive. It talks about all elements. It doesn't nickel and dime us with, we're going to do this, and 2 months later, we're going to come back with something like that. So I really commend you and the owners for putting a full package before us, because that is very refreshing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Unbelievably, we have finally gotten to the end of the agenda. Since, to clarify again, the COA for 321 West Galena has been delayed to January at the owner's request.
That's right.
Are there any announcements?
Thank you. I would just like to propose that we move the January meeting to the second week. Is that the 10th? The second Tuesday of January. I will be home in New York until Friday, and basically Friday would be the only day I would have to prepare, because then we have New Year's Day off. So if we could do that. I was just wondering if everyone else would be okay with that?
No problem.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there any public comment on items that were not on the agenda? Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you.
All right.